The Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians is pleased to present this audio-video replay. Please remember to like our videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive notifications of future content.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Wills and Legacy Giving. And I want to thank everybody for showing up. We have 17 people here tonight, and that's a great start for something that is fairly new to AEBC. And I just wanted to do a few housekeeping items this evening. This is being recorded and it will be up on YouTube. There will be some information on our website as well. And over the course of the next month or so, we'll be putting information about wills and estates on the AEBC Connect. And we will also have some materials and everything that I'm speaking about tonight, including a guide that may be more helpful than just me talking, uh, that I can email to anybody who is interested. So this evening we will be talking about wills and legacy giving, and the way that this probably works best is that I spend a few minutes going through the presentation and then we have a conversation. And one of the reasons that I like to do it that way is if there's something that you may want to ask but aren't 100% comfortable that it gets on the recording, we can wait till the very end and I can stop the recording. So to get started, I want to just let everybody know that this isn't going to be a sell piece tonight, but we will be talking about wills and estates and giving to charity using AEBC as an example. And it's hopefully this session is going to be educational, some reassurance, and practical. And what's going to be really important is that it's going to be a first step in normalizing estate planning so that it reduces the fear that some people do have about thinking about their ultimate demise, but gives you a little bit of help in understanding why it's really important. We'll talk about wills and stuff first, and then we'll get into legacy giving as a secondary to it. So if I'm being a little bit too jargony too, let me know. That's no problem. I can stop and define everything, but hopefully I'll be able uh, to say everything in a way that everybody understands, even though you're not a lawyer or an accountant, and some of you might be actually. I don't know. So the what this session is about, it's about clarity and peace of mind. That's really what estate planning is all about. Because in the way that our society works and the way that the Canadian law works, no matter what province you're in, is that if you don't have a will, the government is in charge. Not somebody you want to have in charge, and not a friend or a family member or your spouse or your common law spouse or even your children. The government's in charge, and that should scare people, or at least set you back a little bit. So why does a will matter? Because it gives you control, and without them, the province mostly and the government decides. So in Ontario, because that's where I'm most familiar with, if you don't have a will, it's called intestate, and that's it. That's a legal term, and every province is a little bit different, but it means someone else has control over everything. So what does everything mean? That means a common law spouse may not inherit. Your bank accounts could be frozen uh, at, when you pass away. There will be extra taxes on your estate. Uh, and the province could actually get every little bit of your assets if you have no next of kin according to the province. You may have next of kin who you identify, but if it's someone who is not blood related or legally related to you, they don't count. So having a will really matters uh, because anyone should have a will. So really, anyone with a bank account who may have some sort of retirement or work benefits, anybody who has insurance should need to have a will. Anyone who has personal belongings or property should have a will, and anyone who has relatives should have a will. And again, I'm going to reiterate that, especially for AEBC, because we do consider ourselves a family, that family comes first, and it should always come first in a will. And although we want to talk about leaving a gift to AEBC in your will, we don't want any gift to be at the expense of family and friends. And so this is why we're talking about estate planning comes before charity. Uh, the will reduce the stress on your loved ones, and it allows less decisions to be made in a stressful situation. So everything from funeral arrangements to bill payments, who takes care of your pets, all of that can be handled in a will. And if you don't have a will, then you're putting your family into a position where they're going to assume what you've said and what you want. And if you told one child one thing 10 years ago and another child something the month before you died, there's going to be a fight. And a will helps really avoid that. So to get started on a will, what's really important is that you have an inventory of your assets. So what do you own that's going to matter to the government and to your family and friends? And that's bank accounts, insurance, anything financial, any real property, and anything that's of sentimental value, and also anything that depends on you, like a pet, a spouse, a roommate, uh, anything or anyone who depends on you. Those are really important to categorize and get information on. The next thing, and this one is actually one of the toughest ones for people in practicality, is to choose an executor. Now, the executor is the person who manages your will, executes all of your wishes, and handles your estate when you pass on. Many people give that job to a lawyer or their spouse or one child. Some people will have more than one executor or co-executors, but many lawyers will frown upon that. What's really important is that you tell your executor that they have to be an executor, and that they agree to do it, and that you would trust them. You don't have to tell them anything in advance, but knowing that they will be making decisions on your behalf after you no longer can is going to be really important. And then, of course, it's important to write it down. That writing a will is there's no verbal wills, uh, whether it's recorded or not. You need to have them uh, written down and signed, and we can do it online. And there'll be some tools that I'll talk about a little later. And then store it safely. We'll give you a few tips about that if you want, but many people store it in their with their lawyer, of course, or an accountant, or with a trusted family member, or at least they tell the trusted family member where the will is. Uh, Used to be when I first started this that people said store it in your freezer in case there's a fire, and usually your freezer doesn't get burnt down. Uh, Now with wills being online, there's everything from Dropbox to OneDrive to thumb drives that you can give to somebody that's password protected. So these are some options about storing it safely. So I'll talk a little bit more about the executor. They carry out your wishes. They manage your finances, pay all your bills, your taxes. Most people and most municipalities will still charge your house for gas and heat and hydro taxes until it's disposed of and is no longer in your name. The other thing is distribute the assets and make sure things are done appropriately. And they must agree to the role. Because if an executor refuses the role, then it goes back to having the state decide. Many times you can do a will by yourself if you feel comfortable enough with it and you're happy with things are. And many of the online will kits will ask you questions and say, maybe you should get someone else or a professional involved. And usually anything that's complex will need professional advice. And I'll start with who that professional advice should be. That should be a lawyer, a financial advisor, or an accountant. Now, simple estates can use these online tools, but if you have a blended family, complex assets, international assets like a vacation home, if you have a real property that isn't just one house or one condo, then you should take a look at that. Or if you believe that your will may be contested by anyone, uh, and especially if you're looking at, uh, you know, maybe you've been married once before and you had a will and now you're remarried and you had to rewrite your will. It's not a bad idea to have a lawyer or somebody at least speak to about what that it entails. So that's kind of important too. uh, but for most people, uh, you can go through it with prompts and even with some online help. So that really talks mostly about wills and estates. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I have a will. I'm on my third one actually, uh, and uh, so hopefully that'll tell you just the importance of having a will, and understanding what you want to do with your assets and how, in many cases, how you want to be remembered. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about legacy giving. And just so everyone understands that when I talk about legacy giving, and I'm coming at it from uh, a charitable professional standpoint. So I've been involved in legacy giving for about 20 years now. I've assisted people in writing codicils, so an agreement in their will for charities. I've assisted uh, executors when they've had complex estates, been the beneficiary through charities of wills and estates, and have done everything but gone to court over contentious wills, and have also with different charities. I've set up about 7 different legacy giving programs and know a lot about the tools and the um, no, I won't say tricks, but tips that charities and individuals who want to give to charity should should have in their toolkit. So, what is a legacy gift? Some people call it a planned gift. Really, those terms are interchangeable, but it really means a future gift through a will or a living will or a plan that you can work up with a charity. And those are different complexities. Many times a legacy gift can be larger than other lifetime giving. I've seen organizations benefit from the sale of a house or a condo where an individual of modest means was able to donate the proceeds of their entire estate. And this individual, particular that I remember, she had given every month to the charity, but only 10, 15, $20. But by the time her estate was finished, it was well over $500,000. And this is an individual who by no means would ever have said, I could give $500,000. But because of the way she planned out, she was able to make a really big investment in, and this happened to be with a university, happened to be the university and into a scholarship program that she was really proud of. That she had been contributing to in a very small way. But she believed in higher education, and we were able to set up a really nice endowment at that time for her. So why did we call it the John Rae Society? AEBC's first really transformative legacy gift was from John Rae. Now, I didn't know John, but I've read a lot about him and heard lots of stories about him. And his generosity, both in his time and his opinions, from what I understand, and his advocacy efforts, were very important to AEBC. And the board of AEBC has decided that we're going to name our program after his generosity. And that's why we call it the John Rae Society. So, of course, anybody who wants to join the society uh, is, uh, of course, it's completely optional. But the other thing that I think is really important is that you can make a gift in your will or in any way, and you don't have to tell us in advance. Right? So you can have this as something that is only known once your estate, your will is read. Now, from an operational standpoint, that's not always the best thing because many charities will have changed what they do, how they operate, and sometimes important technical information before someone passes away. Because if you write your will now and you're even in your mid 70s, statistically, it could be 10, 15 years from now before you pass away and AEBC benefits. And things can completely change. One of the big things that happens in hospitals that I've actually been on the sidelines with is that we've had estates who have come to give for specific programs at specific hospital sites. And with the consolidation and the change in governments, uh, that program was moved to a different hospital. It was canceled at that particular site. And so there was concern is, well, where does this gift go? Does it go to the program, you know, that this person wanted it to go, or does it go to the hospital? And so by involving the charity from the beginning, or at least at an appropriate time, you can be aware and your heirs can be aware of your intentions and can assist when things change. And of course, there's no minimum gift. If there's no saying that all of your estate has to go to the charity. In fact, that's extremely rare. Uh, Generally, charities get a small portion of someone's will. And I believe the last time that I looked from a reliable source, the average gift was about $40,000 to a will. And when I went back and I did my own anecdotal research, that seems to be true. Now it can fluctuate, of course, depending on the size of the charity and the individuals. But again, it's not all or nothing. And the interesting thing is that it can really help. When people decide to give uh, to a charity in a will, the easiest thing to do is to just add in a codicil to an existing will, or if you're writing your will now, put it right in there. And something as simple as I give to the Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians, put down the charitable number, the sum of X dollars, or percentage of my will, or the residue of my estate after everything else has been done, to be used at the discretion of the organization. It's that simple. And that allows the charity and your lawyer and everybody to see something that's easy to execute and is in it's in the will, and it's very easy to deal with. There are other ways to give in a will, and there may be people on this call who understand some of the complexities around financial giving, and you may have heard about some of these, so I'll talk a bit about them. But really, these aren't things that happen, they only happen about 1 out of every 10 gifts. You can give the beneficiary, the charity, an RSP or a RIF or a tax-free savings account. You can sign life insurance over to the charity. Any gift of stocks, bonds, or mutual funds is considered a planned gift. Real property. Many charities get actual items, and sometimes that can present an issue, and other times then they can be used. And then there are also some very complex things such as annuities, donor advised funds, and trusts. I've only been involved in a couple of trusts and never been involved in an annuity or a donor advised fund, but know lots of people who have and would be able to help someone set it up if that's what they're looking at. But to be honest, giving a gift in a will is the easiest way for someone to ensure that their wishes are met. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the good things about charitable giving. If you have an estate that has assets or disposition that's going to be taxed, specifically that would be stocks or mutual funds that have gained value over the years. If you have property that's not just your own home, that can be taxed at an enormous rate because you're taxed at the rate of, let's say your estate is worth $500,000, you're taxed at the $500,000 income rate, not at your current rate if you have a more modest income. And so if you work with an accountant, they can help you set up charities, charitable giving, specifically around gifts and stocks and bonds, and some of them a little more complex, that will actually make the value of the estate to your family go up. And I've seen this happen several times, where I've worked with individuals who've had stocks and they donate the actual stock rather than the proceeds to the charity. And let's say they bought the stock for $10,000. The stock is now worth $250,000 because they've held on to it for 20, 30 years. They will have paid $10,000, but they will get a tax receipt for the $250,000. And that can, in many ways, completely eliminate the taxes that are paid to the government on your estate. And that in that way, the children can benefit much more from the other assets of the house, such as a sale of a house, sale of a secondary property, or just cash inheritance. Okay. So when we talked a little bit about free and low cost tools and being able to fill in a will online, there are 3 Canadian websites that I'm familiar with, and many others are familiar with. One is called Willfora, WILLFORA.com, and it is a website to allow individuals to create a will at no cost and to benefit charities. So this is a charitable website set up by charities that allows people to make charitable gifts and a will for no upfront costs. It sounds very good and maybe too good to be true. The reason is that it's a very simple tool. And if you have a more complex state, then it may not be useful to you. There are a couple of others that range from, I believe, $50 to $100, and one is called Willful, so WILLFUL.co, and legalwills.ca, just spelled the way it sounds. Those are three websites that you can look at. I don't know too much about the accessibility of any of them, but I do understand Willfora, the one that I spoke about first, is accessible. So that's important. So those are some of the free and low cost tools and online giving. I'm using Willfora for my own. So the last thing I want to say is that this conversation is really the first step. And especially if thinking about your end of life plans, how you want to be remembered, and just in general, even what would happen if you are incapacitated. Um, it's really important to take that one small step, and you don't have to do everything today. There are a few other great tools that are out there. One of the ones that I appreciate, it's a book that you can get on Amazon. It's called "It's Been Great, but Now I'm Dead," or at least really, really sick. And it was an Ottawa woman who's written the book uh, because her father became incapacitated due to a sudden illness, and she realized she couldn't even get in to the garage because she didn't know the garage code, and his pet needed feeding, and she didn't know anything about what was going on in his life other than their weekly chats. And so this book helps people to get their plans going in case they get sick, in case they're in an emergency situation. And someone like myself whose parents are elderly, they can say, hey, who who cleans the driveway when it's cold out? We were talking about the snow. Uh, they, what happens if they've booked plans to stay at their cottage, and you know we don't know if it's a rental cottage, what their life insurance is, what their prescriptions are, all of those type of things. That's really important to know. And these books and these help you with some planning uh, that will help you with your family. Those are really important things to think about. And there's a lot that you can do in advance of making up a will, just writing things down so that you feel better. Because the last thing you want is family and friends to be fighting over the version of you they know and want to be remembered. Uh, and it comes out in financial means, and it also comes out in probate issues, legal issues, and just fights. And it happens all the time. I know of one gift that when I was with a hospital foundation and I had just started and it was came on board, and then when I left 5 years later, because the will was contested, it was still happening. A will take 2 to 3 years to finally resolve uh, from the, and that's a simple, easily professionally made will. So anything that's contested, and if you don't have a will, may mean that the people you love aren't the beneficiaries of your assets and your goodwill for 5 or more years. And if that's someone like a roommate, a common law spouse, an adult child, a a dependent who may be disabled, they deserve what you want them to have sooner than that. And so having a will help. So how can AEBC help? Well, we can help from a charitable standpoint and give you some basic tips, where to go, uh, what to look for when you're doing your research. But there's no lawyers on staff, no accountants on staff. But as mentioned, I've got about 20 years in charitable giving and dealing with planned giving and estate planning, so I can tell you who to speak to. Uh, Basically, I'm like a chat GPT, only a real person. I can give you some advice, and that's all I can give you. So that ends the formal part of the presentation. I hope it wasn't too morbid or too boring. I wanted to make it simple and easy for everyone. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to uh, stop sharing the screen, and it's because that makes it much easier for me to see who's may have raised their hand or unmute, and I will take any questions you have. All right. Oh, Chantal, you've unmuted.
Yeah, I will. Just thought I'd get it started, and I think I may know the answer to this. But so I remember when we did our first will, it was something like, I'd like to give my money to the Lions Club. And if that Lions Club doesn't exist anymore, then I want it to go to the Eagles, and if they don't exist anymore. So my question is, what happens in the event that AEBC has now ceased to be an organization, but in your will, you've suggested that there is a gift for them. Um, you want to give provisions for what's going to happen to that money or that
Well,
gift.
no, and that's a really, really good question. And hopefully nobody's going to be rolling over in the grave with that happening. Um,
No.
but there is a disposition of assets from a charity's point of view. So if AEBC in some way, shape, or form just disintegrates, there is rules around how those assets are distributed. And so that would be the way that a future gift would also be distributed. So if AEBC, let's say, folds or merges with another charity, then it automatically becomes that charity. And CRA tracks all of that through the charitable registration numbers. So we'll say, our charitable registration number 001 was folded into this charity, or the assets were distributed among these two or three charities, and then it would be up to those charities to
Right.
to fight amongst themselves how it would work, but it would be the executive's responsibility to deal with that. And at that point, um, there's there's a lot that can be done, but hopefully, uh, if that happens, this is why it's important to let the charity know, because then, whomever's in charge of the charity in 20 years, Chantal,
I'm
then
sure. Yeah.
they will say, hey, we have, 4 or 5 or 10 or 100 planned gifts. We owe it to those individuals to let them know that our circumstances have changed and they should change a will. So that's on the charity to want to do that. So that's what I would advise charities to do, is to contact everybody if they're looking at a merger. So any type of change, and this is more of a governance issue,
Yeah.
what you're talking about. But yes, you can put that in your will. If AEBC in its present form no longer exists, then give it to the Lions Club, or local Lions Club or something like
Yeah, I guess, to the other thing I was thinking of is, you want to think about, in the event that ABC folds, and I certainly hope it's not going to anytime soon, but you may want to think about, do you want to leave that question to, the liberty of whoever gets the charity in question that would receive those gifts? Is something that you want to take a chance on, or do you want to name another charity subsequent to the one you already want to give to, just in case? That's all. That's kind of what I wanted.
No, and that's a great question that I
Because
hadn't
how long does
thought of
CRA
including.
track this for? So let's say the ABC folds tomorrow, all our assets go to CCB, and how long does does the rule stay in place that any further gifts, or I guess those at the time of the organization folding?
Yeah, I think generally government records go back about 6 years.
6 years, 6, 7, yeah.
Yeah. Eh, so so it'd be 6 years after that. Um,
Okay.
so that's the general thing, but I don't know if like there's an archive system to look at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't, I don't know that, but I know that for charities who dissolve, their records are kept in place for CRA for 6 years. So
I mean, we'll be gone, we'll never know, but it's still respectful to have an idea what's going to happen. Okay,
right, and
thank you.
I'm assuming that the future board of AEBC, whatever in wisdom they make about the disposition of the charity, would yeah, at least talk to the members a little bit about it,
Yeah.
so we'll know.
Yeah.
Great. Richard, Marion.
So Chantal's question changed my question that I was going to ask,
Okay.
because I was thinking about more about because I was thinking about the issues you brought up, about people suddenly getting sick, or in the case of what my brother and I have been dealing with, is with elderly parents as well too, and a mother getting dementia, and making sure that their wills were in order before a lawyer wouldn't let her even sign her own will. Um, but the question I was asking, so if I was doing legacy giving or plan giving, um, and I named AEBC, would you advise then, in the, like, let's say that, to make it easier for the executor, that the will all indicate an alternate charity, if it, or at least a charity that has the same goals and objectives as ABC, if ABC ceased to exist, say 20, well, in my case it'll be 40 years from now, would be gone. That's assuming I live till I'm 110. Or would it, like what happens in the event, like, because like you said, CRA only keeps those records for 6 years, but if ABC dissolves, and there's no place for the estate to send the money to, what happens to those funds?
Well, and that's where your executor comes in.
Yeah.
And so that's why you need to pick someone who you trust to make decisions, because most people who make a will make it 4 to 10 years before they need it, and that's statistically. Some people, have it for many, many more years, but generally people begin to think about having a will uh, not too long before they need it. Now that's changing because of people and conversations like this, and actually COVID changed that as well. A lot of people made their wills during COVID, um, even though they didn't need to, but it was just, it was an event that made people think about it. So my guess is that people have made their wills now in their 60s and 70s, and generally people will be living into their 80s and 90s. So the will you make now may not be relevant for 20 years, and the world will change in 20 years. And that's why it's important to do a check, and to have an executor you trust, and who isn't 30 or 40 years older than you. Um, you know, uh, because if there is an issue with the will, then it goes back to the lawyers, so, and the state. Does that answer your question, Richard?
That answers my question. Yeah. So like the executor has some leeway to kind of look at and say, okay, this charity doesn't exist, but I know Richard wouldn't want the money to go to a service agency like CNIB, so I'm going to donate it to the Canadian Council of the Blind instead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And again, don't know much about the afterlife. If you don't like the decision, you can come back and haunt them.
Yeah.
That's
The-
don't know
um,
much of it. So
you mentioned donating stocks. Does that
yes.
apply if to like yeah, and you mentioned TFSAs. Does that apply like say if your TFSA is all in investment funds? When you donate, if you're donating your TFSA, you're basically donating the entire amount of the fund, not as a like not as a not like you were mentioning about donating a stock that might be only costs the $10,000, but the charity issues a tax-free 250,000. That doesn't work the same way with the TFSA, I'm assuming.
Well, it does. You can, and again, in this case, I would talk to a financial advisor.
Yeah,
But it is my understanding that let's say you had $100,000 in a tax-free savings account, you can say I give AEBC 50% of my TFSA and 50% to another charity or to my, my cat.
yeah,
Yeah, those can be specific uh, things in a will. The
yeah,
distribution, it never has to be all or nothing, unless
yeah,
it's like one stock. You know what I mean? Like one something that you can't split apart.
yeah, yeah.
So, but
And
a
then
TFSA can be split. So,
can't be split now. And then one thing to just keep in mind for those of us with guide dogs, like in a lot of cases, the guide dogs don't belong to us; they belong to the guide dog school. But I would probably still say that you might want to leave instructions for your executor on who to contact. But the dog can't be willed to a family member or anyone like that.
right, and
Yeah.
again,
That might
that's a
depend on
little
the
bit different.
school, though.
Yes,
That
that's right.
depends on the school, like it, but depends on the school. Like the seeing, yeah, like you're right, Alan, because the seeing eye, you own your dog, but a lot of other schools, you have to if you don't apply for ownership, the school still owns the dog.
Right. And that's with any pet, and that's a little bit maybe then this is something we can talk about a little later because it's something that I'm working on as a personal project is more about it's things to do as you age and as your life changes. How to go about that in a planned manner. Nothing to do with your will. So,
Great, thank you.
no problem. Linda, I believe you were next.
Okay. You mentioned about the John Rae Society and joining the society, but you didn't sort of say much more about it than that. So what does that involve? What does that mean? If you wish to become is it something that's only open to people who have left a legacy to AEBC? Is it open to people who are giving on a regular basis to AEBC? How does that work? Or
The
do we
John
know yet?
Yeah, there's a few basic things, but a lot of it is in, let's say, development. So if you let AEBC know that there is a gift in the will or there is a planned gift coming, then that would qualify you as a member of the John Rae Society. And it's something you can talk about. And what I would do is, would sit down with you if you want and talk about it to understand some of the reasons around it, maybe get a story that we can, to promote and, speak about the John Rae Society. As more and more people become involved, we will probably do things specifically for those members, and it could be anything like such as advance notice of seminars, webinars. um, Maybe there'll be referrals we can give you to someone, like a financial advisor, that type of thing. So not really perks, but just an advance notice and thank yous. And if there is something that is going to change AEBC, and that maybe let's say not something as drastic as as a merger or something, but let's just say that we say we're no longer going to be doing our scholarship program. We're going to hand that off to this school, and we're going to let this school handle all of our scholarships, or this entity handle all of our scholarships, like a community foundation, for example. We're going to, the Kelowna Community Foundation is going to handle all of our scholarship program. If you have let us know, then that's something that we can check and say, oh, Linda really, we cared about the scholarship program, and I know she has a gift in the will. I should let her know. This may affect your gift. Think about it. And it's about that respectful communication. Now, there may be other things we're doing, but we won't be publicly listing donors on the website or anything like that and saying, yay, congratulations, Linda has made a gift. That's not what we want unless you
Okay.
want that.
Okay.
So it's more along the fact that this is as much to honor John Rae and his generosity as it is to thank the individual, and it's just a way of saying thank you and a mechanism for us to honor the generosity of one individual through the generosity of others.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Linda. Diana.
Okay. I guess full disclosure is I have 2 children, families, and 4 grandchildren, and I really like AEBC, but I also know in these economic times that my children can benefit from whatever we have left. And I have no idea what that's going to be at this point. I mean, we do have wills. We've made them some time ago. What interested me in your presentation in this context is how you can leave a legacy that the tax benefits would benefit your children. Because then I could get, and it doesn't mean that I don't care about AEBC, but I mean, those kids and grandkids come first. So, I guess my question is, how does that work?
It really depends on your asset mix. So
Okay.
you and your husband, if you're both gone, what
Right.
happens to all of your stuff? And there's going to be
Okay.
tax implications around that. And that's where a financial advisor, a tax
Yeah, we
specialist,
have one.
yeah,
We have
they'll
one,
let
and
you
we
know,
have. Okay.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
they can run through a scenario with you. Sometimes this can be a bit bracing. Someone saying, okay, so if you and your husband pass away, this is going to happen, and it can hit home.
Yeah.
So but then you say, oh, I didn't realize I would have that much, and a small gift to AEBC won't make a huge bit of difference, right?
Right.
Or this is something, so it's a specific amount or a small percentage,
Right.
especially if your family may know how much you love AEBC, and a couple of times I've dealt with the family who've come up and said, you know what, my dad passed away. He's loved, and this again was a hospital. What
Right.
can we do in his honor that gets him remembered at the hospital? Buying a bench, putting a name up on a
Mm-hmm.
roof or something like that.
Yep.
Those are small things that we can talk about and work with families as well. And we've had that experience. So don't discount that. But yeah, family has to come first. They do legally, and of course they do in your heart, and you've got to follow that. But again, if you have an estate that's even a little bit complex, where you have added value and not just interest, then there's definitely a way that charitable giving can assist.
Mm. Okay. Well, actually, what it does is it tells me we can talk to a financial advisor about that.
Yeah.
Because we have wills, and I think we'll probably relook at them. But and it's not that I don't want to give to charities, because I do, but I know in the way this economy is, it's scary. No matter how much money you have. Well, I guess there's certain people who don't care how much money they have, but I don't have that much money. And I think it needs to go to, because we were very lucky that we were able to benefit from our parents, because I'm old enough now that both my husband's and my parents are gone. And so we benefited from the fact that they left funds to us and our kids. And that helped us.
Right, right. And again, it really depends on how you do it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
usually through like I said, properties other than your main house. Anywhere
Right.
there's going to be capital gains. So let's just say anywhere
Uh,
where there's going to be capital gains,
right.
then giving to a charity can reduce your tax implications. And there are sometimes when it just helps clean it up too. A gift, this is the way things are going to happen. Um,
Mm.
and again, it really depends. It takes some of the emotion away, and
Mm-hmm.
and the inability for people to argue over something. And sometimes that's really important.
Right. Yeah,
So
that is
you
true.
know your family,
Yeah.
but, so you know what we're not saying that give AEBC your fancy china or anything, because your kids are
No.
but but if there's
Actually, my
something
kids
that
don't want the china.
no no doubt about that.
But
but
it's
but
funny
again,
you
it,
say
it
that.
helps with the efficiency sometimes, and again, uh, you can set up charitable giving in a way that, again, if the gifts come to a charity or to a specific individual through the mechanism, it just makes the executor's job a lot easier
Mm-hmm.
and cleaner and quicker. Because, like I said, there's estates will take at least 2 years now to go
Oh,
through
I know.
CRA.
We have had to do. My husband was executive for his mother, and so we've been through this in different ways. It hasn't come to us yet, but yeah, we're getting old. So okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Great. No, that was a very good question. Thanks, Diana. Alan, I've seen that you're unmuted. Did you want to ask something?
Yeah, I just wondered if there aren't perhaps certain differences that might apply. For example, I live in Quebec and a lot of this stuff is regulated through the Code civil du Québec, which is a somewhat different sort of legal regime that that has existed since Quebec became Quebec. In the in where the for example, the Napoleonic Code was the basis for um, law in Quebec because it was the legal system that the Francophone majority was more familiar with. And so there are it seems to me that there could be differences that would apply in those kinds of situations. And I wonder how much of the information you've provided um, you know, applies in these situations, or whether, for example, a Quebec resident doing something like this might have to go through some other hoops to pull it off.
Yeah, and that's a really good example. And I did mention it briefly that it is the province that matters, and Quebec's laws they're more rules based, more formal. Ontario law is uh, they're based on more precedent, um, and Ontario's common law and Quebec is more civil law. So there are different types of wills in Quebec, and I think one of the present wills that are signed in the presence of a notary public, they're really powerful in Quebec.
Well,
So
that's who you end up
yes,
dealing with. You don't go to your average lawyer
no, no,
around
no,
here.
you don't.
I mean, we did ours a long time ago, and you're dealing with notaries, and it's an entirely different
It,
sort of
it
setup
is,
too.
it is, but it's still important, no matter where you live, that you have a will that works for you, because in Quebec, I know that even there's no automatic spousal beneficiary or child entitlement. Um, Whereas in other provinces, it is different. BC and Alberta are also quite different than Ontario. And if you have a will in Quebec, it's a lot more powerful. So in a way, it's much better that you have a will in Quebec than it is anywhere else. So I'm sure that if you have property in different provinces, um, but you live in Quebec, that matters. And I would say that, because of I don't know much about the Quebec law other than a couple of times I've, been involved with something. I would say that you really do need to speak by a notary or a lawyer. You can have it ready, and one of the ways that people say I don't trust a free will online. Well, you know what? Go through it online, and even as a practice, because sitting in front of a lawyer in a lawyer's office may not be as comfortable as in your own home with your family, friends, spouse around you. And you can go through the online will, especially the free one, and say, this is what I want. These are the questions. And then you're going to be more prepared for your lawyer or notary when it comes down. So, there's that advice.
A lot of lawyers have checklists now that they want you to review online before you go to them. Saves them time and you money.
Yes. Yeah. But that is a really good reminder, Alan, that every province is different. And if you have international properties or international assets, that matters as well. So in the U.S., Europe, anywhere there is different property laws, and some of them, if you're not a resident, that asset is no longer yours when you pass away. So depending on what country you have a house in or a cottage, vacation property. Okay, well, we're right at 8 o'clock, but definitely if there's any questions, for sure, let me know. You all have my email address. Everybody knows who I am, or you can send a quick email to info@blindcanadians.ca and say, hey, I'd like more information about what we spoke about. There is, if you go into the donate page, there's a little bit of explanation there and some of the wording I spoke about. And we will have all of this available for you within the next couple of days, a guide and basically a summary of this presentation. So thank you all for coming. And I do hope that we don't see your will for many, many years, but I do hope that you take the time and put as much care into the end of your life as you have into your life, because it will serve your family very well, no matter what's in it. That it will ease some of their stress. So thank you, everybody. I'll stay on and for a little while till everybody's gone, but I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for checking out our content. To learn more about the Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians, please visit www.blindcanadians.ca. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe.